Hello, folks. Here we are, another podcast. We're at Westside Barbell right now. We got a lot of athletes here. I've got power lifters, I've got fighters, I've got ball players. So we're going to demonstrate why we use these exercises. This can change a gym. This can change your lifestyle. The reverse hypers, we're going to start with the reverse hypers. 1973, I had a 670 deadlift and a 630 squat, no gear. And I had the highest total in the world. And at that time, then I broke my lower back. What the fuck? Joe. And I broke my lower back, and I was on crutches for 10 months, and came up by pure accident doing a reverse hyper exercise. First, it was the only exercise I did with no pain. It pumped up my back, and it basically cured me. And by 1977, I was pulling 710 at 195 in contest. It was the fourth best deadlift in the country, and I went on to make top 10 deadlifts in the 220s in the early 80s, and actually in 2005 when I was 57, I was 10th, and I pulled 715 at 217. So if it wasn't for reverse hyper, you wouldn't even be listening to this podcast. I've had 6 United States patents on this, and as right now I have 5 current patents. Many people try to duplicate this machine. That's why one of my trademarks is often imitated, always irritated, because I like to see people come up with their own original ideas. And but this machine is great, so we're going to demonstrate the strength. I want to talk about loading. You know, a lot of my podcasts, I talk about the loading should be 4 times greater than the squat volume. So like a 400-pound squatter, if you follow our stuff, around 4,800 pounds, so a 400-pound squatter would have to do 20,000 pounds. Now that would be on a pro machine or a strap or a pendulum like this. This bent pendulum, I patented this in 2013. The weights are 19 inches behind your feet. So mechanically it's very, very difficult. It literally pushes you forward 19 inches for greater traction. Now I'll just get Joe now to demonstrate. I'm also got John Quinn here, our ART therapist and expert on physiology. He's going to explain why you need to do these from a safety aspect. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so Joe's on the reverse hyper here, and we'll kind of go through what's going on from the spinal perspective. So you can see this is his tailbone or his sacrum right here, and you can see how that goes under, and with the pendulum it's going to pull it under even more. And then you can see that his spine is actually really able to segment, and what I mean by you can see how it comes up and then goes down under an extension, right? And so what's happening is in between each segment, you're good, man. In between each segment, what's happening is it's therapeutically pumping the intervertebral discs to increase the fluid flow, regenerate it, so it's a really restorative type process. And then he's going to come over to the one that is not the bent pendulum, this one. And this is another one that I use a lot in therapy. So go ahead and get up in here, Joe. And Lou will show you how to use the machine for performance and how they actually use it here. I'm going to show you for therapy. So all Joe's going to do is just flex his glutes, his posterior chain. When he does that, you can see he brings his head up, and then he's going to tuck it under. And as he comes under, he's going to actually engage his hip flexors and try and pull it. So then come back up. So just get it moving. Use the momentum. There you go. Momentum. And so you can see how his whole entire spine is coming up into extension and then going down into flexion. And he's putting a lot of tension through his hands too, so that's engaging his thoracolumbar fascia. So you should feel a nice big pull in this tissue that a lot of guys get, they start to lose extensibility in this tissue. And so the same thing, you can see the pumping effect. So see how it comes up and then it goes under. Same thing on this one where the sacrum is actually going under. So it's significantly better than like an inversion table or a traction table or anything like that, because we're actually adding stress and movement into the discs and into the spine. Okay, you're good. And then Lou, did you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I want to talk about the loading a little bit because Joe's capable of a 900-pound squat. So again, it would be 4 times the volume, which the volume is somewhere around 10,000 pounds. So Joe actually sometimes does 60,000 pounds. Yep. The average weight is around 450. It's 50% of your top squat for around 4 times the volume of your squat. And because he's such a strong squatter and he deadlifts 705, you have to do this. It's tremendous restoration. It's the only machine that actually rotates the sacrum.
Yeah, and you can see that hopefully on the live stream that the sacrum is actually rotating under. And so a lot of people have issues with that L5, S1 segment. And so right now you're therapeutically actually loading the tissue, you're training the tissue, and then you're getting a lot of circulation in there. The discs are avascular, meaning that there's no direct blood flow. And so how they get nutrients is through a process called diffusion. And what has to happen is the low back muscles actually have to get pumped up. When we talk about low back muscles, the Soaz complex on the front side, the erector spinae, and glutes on the back side. So what we're doing is actually putting a bunch of blood into those tissues. So by processes of diffusion, the discs start to get nutrients.
So it actually works the muscles underneath the spinal erectors.
Correct.
The soft tissue.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Lou showed me, and then I started adding in therapeutically, is you could see how we were training in a very partial range because we're trying to get his spine to segment and really emphasize his low back. And so when he was coming up, he was just basically doing a hip extension using his glutes and his posterior chain. And then he was taking the momentum under, but when he was coming under, he was actually engaging his hip flexors. So we're still training the entire, so when people talk about training the core, you can train the core, you can therapeutically train the spine, all that stuff just using this machine or this machine if you want to increase range of motion. Now,
what about a closed chain versus open chain?
Yeah, so that's a great point, Tom. So this is, when we talk about the hamstrings, I don't know if you want to get more into this, but the hamstrings, when we're talking about developing linear speed, meaning sagittal plane going forward, the fibers of the hamstrings, you can see they're going to go from point A to point B, right? And so what's happening is this is actually training the hamstrings in an open chain. And by open chain, I mean the feet aren't touching the floor. And then we have a complementary machine, the inverse leg curl, that's going to train the hamstrings using the torso that we'll get into and probably explain more then. But it trains, like you said, it trains it puts the spine in an open chain setting. So if you're doing a back extension, you're gonna get compression because your feet are in the ground. So as you come up, it's gonna segmentally compress. The difference between this is because you're pulling here, you get traction that way, and because it's pulling under, you get traction throughout the entire spine. So you can't replicate this exercise using a back extension.
Okay.
One more point to all you football coaches out there, you strength coaches. I used to travel around. I go to a lot of universities, including pros, and I'd walk in, they'd have 90 pounds of this machine. This is ridiculous, guys. You cannot get hurt. If you use half of what a person's squat is, they're going to get strong, eliminate all their lower. If you have a weak lower back, you are going to acquire hamstring injuries. If you get hamstring injuries, you're going to acquire knee injuries. So if people don't use the machine to build up the glutes, the spinal erectors, and the hamstrings, you'll eliminate all these injuries that you're going through, which is pathetic because that's how I gauge a strength coach, by the amount of injuries their team has. If they have a lot of injuries, I don't think they're a very good strength coach. It doesn't make any sense. That's what the weight room's for, to prevent injuries.
Yeah, and when you think about running, you're extending that leg. And in this machine, you are extending the leg. So that's where it's going to develop the strength that he's talking about.
Here, I want to show one thing too. Joe, pull the pin and we're going to pop it down and show the different angle. This machine rotates 15 degrees either direction. This puts even more traction on the back. All right, now we'll go the other way, Joe. Now it's a lot like doing 45-degree hypers. This is all spine erector like this. And so we use all these different angles. We always constantly change something. Remember, to adapt to training is never fully to adapt. All right, now let's move on to the next reverse hyper. These are all patented devices and pendulums, and they're all covered under one patent. Actually 5 patents, but they all have different claims. Brad played at Cincinnati University football, and he's going to demonstrate the dual pendulum. John, I wish you'd just demonstrate this one.
Yeah, so this is the dual pendulum, meaning that we can bring one leg up at a time, which is really good, right? Because this is actually simulating the running effect, right? So, and then on top of it, anytime we do a single leg, we're gonna get more of a rotation in the spine. So instead of just sagittal motion in the spine, now we're gonna start to get that transverse rotation in the actual vertebrae. And you can do this many ways. One of the ways is you can actually simulate running. So he can do kind of like a simulation of running. And the entire time we're doing this, remember that the low back, the spine, and all of its disc components are getting traction. They're getting optimally trained, right? Okay, you can relax. And then what we'll do is then we'll just do one at a time. So just bring this leg up and then bring it under, and then perfect. And then bring this leg up and then bring it under. And so you can see that there's going to be a rotation in the vertebrae. Also, a very popular therapeutic exercise is the bird dog crunch from a therapist perspective. This is significantly better than the bird dog crunch because we're actually going to get traction throughout the entire spine, right? And so what he would do is the same thing where he would really pull with his left and then bring this one up, and you're going to get that basically how the thoracolumbar fascia and this glute ties into this lat. You can see that we're able to actually start to train this tissue right here, while at the same time you got to keep it in mind that we're always therapeutically treating the spine. Does that make sense? So if you're doing bird dog crunches, you might as well start to do it in this setting so that you're killing two birds with one stone with the athlete and helping therapeutically prevent injuries in their spine and keep it healthy.
Brad, if you just do one rep and hold it, look at the glute fire. No other machine is going to fire these glutes like this. Look, you can isolate the glute muscles. So the hamstrings from the knee ties into the glute, which ties into the low back and the spinal rectors.
Right. And if you look at the glute is a transverse. It's the fibers are going in this direction, but the hamstrings are going in this direction. So that's what we're saying. You're training the hamstrings in an actual sagittal plane. So if you're trying to develop linear speed in your athletes, you're going to do it. You want to do it in both an open chain setting where the hamstring has to control the lower extremity, and then we'll do the inverse leg curl where the hamstring has to control the torso. So it's both ends of the hamstring. So when you talk about actual hamstring development, that's going to be the best way to actually do it.
Years ago, I was in New Orleans. Thank you. I was in New Orleans, and a guy came up. He had an EMG tester. You wanted to test the reverse hyper versus Romanian deadlift. The reverse hyper with an Olympic weightlifter on it, doing both machines, both exercises. It registered 2 times the hamstring and lower back activity that Romanian deadlifts did. And this is a traction device. Why does Westside have broke almost 140 world records? Because as we get stronger, we use restoration methods. Every time this makes our lower back stronger, it works as restoration. Where we got, at the very end of this, we're going to show you a machine is positively unbelievable for strength and restoration. But I want to demonstrate one more for strap. All these machines also come with straps. Joe, please. Now, if you notice, you can't see, but this is 400 pounds welded on here. This is the least weight that this gym uses. This would be a weight that an 800-pound squatter would use. All right? Joe, just do a few reps. It comes with 2 straps. The longer straps works the glute more. The shorter straps work the lower back a little more. But all these are slightly different. Now you notice it's good technique. See how he drops, raises. Drops, stretches. See this? He stretches and contracts. Stretches, contract. Always breathe when you lower the weights. Hold your breath when you raise the weights. Thank you, Joe.
Exactly. And if you want to train the hip flexors, you can train the hip flexors and actually pull them under, which will increase the lengthening here.
If you watch, when I do these, I constantly slide off the machine when I lower the weights and pull myself on the machine when I raise the plates. Exactly what you're talking about with the lats and connected down to the lower back.
Right. And if you have your athletes and they're always with a weightlifting belt, right, and it's preventing actual spinal motion, then you can't assume that the people have spinal segmentation. And so what this does, because you guys could probably see, is it's getting the spine to be able to segment. A lot of the reason why you have a disc issue is because you maybe have one level that spinal level that isn't segmenting, and so that's the level that above or below that is going to cause the herniation or the bulge or the issue. So that's why this prevents it by actually training the spinal joints, getting them to segment. So if you're doing a lot of heavy compression stuff like squats and then having a belt where there's going to be no spinal motion and everything's here, you have to get the spine to move. Otherwise, it's going to get injured when it's forced to move and you haven't trained it in that way.
Many athletes develop tight psoases as well. This is something John treats a lot. You get tight psoas, all of a sudden your pelvic is not correctly where it belongs. So when you run, the center of gravity is incorrect and you get lower limb injuries, foot, ankle, hip, knee. So when you do this, it actually relaxes the psoas.
Right. Yeah, and at the same time, it not only relaxes the psoas, but it's training. A lot of people think because they've injured a tissue or they have a dysfunction in the tissue that they don't have to train it, and they can just get treatment for it. Treatment is good because it will fix the issue, but if you don't go and train that tissue, then you're not doing anything. It's going to go right back. So this puts you in a setting that's safe for your spine where you can actually train the psoas complex, meaning psoas quadratus lumborum iliacus.
And many people, you know, many people out there in our audience will tell me, "Oh man, my left erector is all pumped up all the time." That means you got a tight psoas, one or the other, whatever side that is. And so that's one thing will loosen us up. A secondary exercise that I found very effective is doing a ball setup. I just like to do a couple because after this, this ball setup will absolutely release the psoas by putting this under my lower back, going down, stretching, touching, and then coming up.
Yeah, so
It stretches this up.
yeah, so it increases the range. So the psoas, for people that don't know, attach right here, and it comes down onto the lesser trochanter, right? So it's the only muscle that attaches the spine to the lower extremity. And so if he was laying flat, we wouldn't give that much of a stretch. But since he's on a ball, it's going to increase the amount of stretch, if that makes sense to people.
Many long distance runners suffer from weak backs, weak stomach, so they lose their posture. This ball doing static abs will make you incredibly strong and never lose your posture running.
Exactly, because a lot of times they're going to get pulled down from the running where this is going to statically enable them to be upright.
Okay.
Is there a difference if you're a coach from going a bent pendulum, ultra pro, a dual? Is there anyone that you would suggest one but the other?
All right, for most pro teams, because they're not going to put any weight on it, I would use the bent pendulum because 50 pounds is probably equivalent to 250 pounds on a machine like this. I would constantly use 480 for 40 reps, 4 sets of 10. Now we've jumped the reps up to 25 and 30 a set. But my all-time record, when I pulled 715 when I was 57, I did 180 for 6. Strict reps. Held every one for a split second. That's how hard that machine is. Yeah. But it's very beneficial because you got 19 inches more traction. And that's what you want. You know, instead of touching like this, you're actually doing this. That's very, very important. Full range of motion. If you want to be healthy, get full range of motion, strength follows.
Exactly.
Let's move on to Miles here. Miles will demonstrate our plow swing. This is another patented machine. And one reason we use bands. If you look down here, we use bands. Why do I use bands? Because bands will shoot him back in, so we have an overspeed eccentric causing greater stretch reflex. Very good. I trained a guy from high school right into college, back and forth into the pros. His name is Dave Cadella here in Columbus, Ohio. He's 6'7", 310. He thought one of the best things besides all this, he powerlifted with us, but was 3 sets of 10 3 times a week. It kept him he was a lineman. And played 5 years in the NFL and retired. I think he's in banking now. But this is one of the major exercises that he did was the plow jumps.
Can you show us the adjustable angle?
Yes, it depends on the foot. You know, you can adjust it on down, so you stay on his toes, or we can raise it up. So all kind of angles, whatever. Miles, what are you telling me? Say take it down one, if you feel more comfortable. There it is. I'm not sure. I think I'm sure, but you ran a 10.8 in high school?
Yes.
10.800 meters. Now he's a fighter.
What's your best 40?
4-3.
4.340.
Louis, what do you say? A lot of people who see this machine in action think it's very bad for your knees. It's going to damage your knees.
Now, it has nothing to do with that. You know, you have to properly long. You know why people get hurt? You're weak. You're weak. You get knocked out, you got a weak jaw. And you're not going to get hurt. We do this all the time. We load this machine up where I couldn't even lift it. Band upon band, also for leg pressing, not for jumping. You want to use these type of weights. You know, a lot of times, if we put a force pad on here, we can develop around 660 pounds of force, about 300K. And what we would do with Miles, what you would do if you don't have a force plate tester, when his feet cleared this much and start going back, we stop the set. Once you start to fatigue and you don't clear the mat, your flight time is smaller, just stop. Now, I'll give you an idea. I have an 18-year-old girl, and her box record is 55 inches. All right? I had an intern jump on a 63.5. Now, you guys kind of suck at box jumping, right?
Right.
60. And the same with you, right? 61. I mean, their jumps were enormously up. Same with you, right? Yeah, I mean, their jumps are fighters, and for some reason, fighters don't seem to have very good jumps. Maybe because you've never gone that way, you're always leaping forward for takedowns. But when they started training this way, their jumps went up, everything, all your physical capabilities are going up, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right, thanks, man. All right, now, this is another patented item, and Brady Mattingly invented this, and I owned it. And this is the greatest hamstring developer in the world. Joe, no one can do a Russian leg curl. Everybody tries to do a Russian leg curl. They go halfway down, fall on their face. You've seen it. Then you push yourself up. It's the dumbest freaking thing I've ever seen. And you know what? If you want to be great, you might have to spend a little bit of money. And like something, this cost me 16 grand. But people don't want to pay $2,500 to make a football team cut half their injuries out. And what Joe's going to do, we're going to start with 45 pounds. Take the weight down some until he's actually going to hold on a little bit of weight for you. So we're going to show, proof positive, what this machine can do for hamstrings. Go ahead, Joe. Just warm up and let me know when you're warm up.
Yeah, so you can see on the reverse hyper, Joe was using his hamstrings, right, to extend his legs back. Now he's using his hamstrings to extend his back, right? So that was the open chain setting of how we train the hamstrings. This is the closed chain setting of how we train the hamstrings. So when he goes down, right, go for it.
Well, to become more efficient, we take weight off this machine because it's counterbalance. Now we're down to 25 pounds. Okay, hold on, Joe. Can you go to just a pad one time?
No, let's go just pad.
Now there's no weight except the pad. So Joe's going to do this. All right. Whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready. Now, not only a real Russian leg curl, he's going to be real parallel. Now, Joe, what have you held on to?
Most I've held on to is 35 pounds for 2 reps.
And you started with what, a couple plays?
Yeah.
And over a period of a few months, worked yourself down.
Yep.
We had 2 athletes here. One was a 900 deadlift. He weighed 340. He did 9.5 reps in the full Russian leg curl. And we had another with 875 deadlift and 1150 squat, do 6 reps at 320. Now, ball players, go ahead and give this a shot. You're going to find out you'll kill yourself. They'll have 4 plates on here. And when your hamstrings get stronger, the ACL injuries disappear. Calves, why was this made? Basically, it's a much great improvement over calf ham glute. It was made for Valery Borzov and weightlifters. How does it work? Calf, flexus, calf, ham glute. That's exactly how you run. So that's why this machine was made. Everyone needs these machines. That's why this gym is so strong.
Yeah, and if you look, you're going to see for the therapists and people out there that know the anatomy of the knee, you got the gastroc that comes in and crosses the knee joint and attaches right under this hamstring, and then you got the hamstring coming down and attaching right here. So you can see that we're literally training this joint to make sure that it is protected, if that makes sense. So the gastroc crosses the knee, so that's going to help bring them up. The hamstring crosses the knee, and that's exactly what we're training.
So why should someone get this over a glute ham?
Because everyone cheats on glute hams. No one can do it. Watch them. They'll slide their knees up and down. They'll cheat. Charles Bentley told us that 1 out of 100 linemen can do a legit glute ham. So that means none of them could do this. Right, Brad? You play pro football. Yeah. No one can do this. When you do this, your strength is just amazing. I don't care if you're kicking someone, kicking a ball, kicking a person, running, jumping, or lifting. It's amazing.
And if someone's injured or coming back from injury, they could add weight to this and go through.
Yeah, exactly. Because like Lou said, that we could just put a bunch of weight on. And the other thing that I do, because I'm more of I'm a bodybuilder, and so the good thing that I like about this machine is it lets me train to eccentric failure. So a lot of times people know that concentric failure is where you fail first. So what happens is when I get in here, once I fail and I'm down here, I can have my partner lift me up. So I'm not even doing the concentric phase, but then I'm doing a very controlled eccentric. So a lot of people forget the aspect that muscles create force and they break force. So if you're worried about your athlete having the capacity to break, to prevent any type of ACL injuries, then you would want to do eccentric based stuff, meaning they would come down at a very controlled rate, and then you would just lift them back up using this apparatus.
Again, if you look at the size principle theory, or the bodybuilder would use a repetition to failure, the only reps that work are the very last reps. And before, when John would use this machine, he would do several reps and start to fatigue. I would put weight on. Yeah. He would do more reps. I put weight on. I work with sprinters. I'm working with an Olympic hurdler right now, getting ready for the Olympics coming up, female. But I also have a long distance runner here. The long distance runner, we do exactly what we did with John. When she starts to fatigue eventually, we put more weight on and let her keep going. She's been on here for a half hour. So, the sprinter would do it opposite, 2 to 6 reps. So it's all exercise specificity, just like football. Football plays 4 to 7 seconds, 40-second rest. You waste your time to do anything longer.
Yeah,
you're wasting your time.
And if you want to completely train the hamstrings from an open chain setting, right, you would go to the reverse hyper and then you would come into here because this is the closed chain setting. So the hamstrings over there are controlling, creating motion into the lower extremities. Over here, the hamstrings are creating power so that you're moving your torso. So if you're a strength coach out there and you want to develop your athlete's hamstrings, you need to do it from both an open chain setting and a closed chain setting, and using both of these machines will provide you that setting.
All right, let's move on. And this is a hip quad. Many people have terrible posture, and their hips are forward or backwards. A lot of basically this is a lot like the hammock lift for high jumpers. Especially women would jump over bars, drop their buttocks, touch the bar. Well, this machine teaches you to keep the hips forward. Go ahead, please. DJ's going to show you. The action is here. It's not an abdominal machine. He's stretching these quads completely, then using this muscle, bringing the hips forward. When you wrestle, what do you got to do? Get your hips in, right? Yeah. So that teaches this as well. It teaches a lot of sports to get the hips. But posture. You see a lot of people walk like this, see a lot of people walk like that. So this actually creates perfect posture.
Yeah. Yeah, and so what it's doing is a lot of people have a hard time maybe training the rectus femoris, and the rectus femoris is going to insert right here, and then it goes down onto the tendon, and so you can see the lengthening effect that occurs from this machine, and then that is the main muscle that we're emphasizing here to pull up.
This is a lot like in the 60s, bodybuilders did a lot of, they were called sissy squats.
Yeah.
And they had huge teardrops in here, just amazing. Yeah. You don't really sit like anymore.
Right.
And they did a lot of exercises like this, basically for those muscles, but it also corrected posture.
Exactly.
We want to demonstrate the standing leg curl. Joe? Oh. What we do is, before you start, Joe, Joe will push this as hard as he can. He'll do some glute hams. When he starts to fatigue on this, after a week or two, he'll push this up. When he starts to fatigue, he'll go to standing leg curl. And then we go to band leg curls for 200 and 300 reps, just for restoration and keep injuries down, soft tissue. Joe, go ahead and do a couple of standing leg curls. Good. Hit the other leg. Perfect. This is very good because a lot of people have bilateral deficits, and this is the easy way to tell. Just like the dual pendulum hyper. Yeah. You get in here, some people can't, if you can't use the same weight with both legs, you have a weakness, so you need to start training that weakness or finding out why, and many times it's just physical balance of the body.
Yeah, and another thing you'll notice is he's actually creating a knee flexion on this one. So we're going to try and capture those end range fibers, right? So these would be considered, what would you say, more compound movements? Yeah. These two, and this would be kind of the finisher to try and get the rest of the motor units and fibers you haven't really fatigued or trained yet.
Right. I helped Mel Siff years ago do seminars for super training. And Mel told me a story, and I always objected to this. He told me that when he did a knee experiment, they wouldn't let him squat. He had to do extension. He was mad about that. And I go, yeah, it made no sense. Why not do if you know how to do lifts, do a bench. They never do the bench. They're going to test the elbow extension. But I got to thinking after a few years, they tested single joint movement. Why? Because it's safer. All of our exercises are almost directed towards single joint movement. Right. They're very safe. 80% of our training is on this, only 20% with a barbell. So that's why we don't have any injuries. If you get injuries, you're not going to get any better. You have to have a long career to be good.
Yeah, and one of the things too, we were talking about, Tom, you brought up about this machine being potentially dangerous for your athletes. The only reason why this machine would be dangerous for your athletes is if your athletes aren't prepared for this machine, right? And this is something that's done, if you're a basketball player, you're going to be jumping with this much force all the time, right? And so the way that we can start to do this as strength coaches and incorporate this is understand the load-bearing capacity of the athlete's tissues and optimally load them and progressively build them up. But if you're not training tissues because you deem them to be dangerous, your athlete is eventually going to use those tissues and you're going to regret that you didn't train them, because that's probably where they're going to get injured in. So machines like this, right, that we would consider maybe high impact, you still need to be able to do, because you need to increase the capacity of those tissues, especially the elastic properties when he's getting shot back down from the overspeed eccentrics.
That's right. And actually on this machine, normally you're going to exert about 600 to 660 pounds of force, but a top sprinter puts out 1,000 pounds of force and more on every step. So this can't be more dangerous than sprinting. And football players are very powerful men, and they put out just as much. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't know how to run properly, and they get injuries. That's why you have to make them stronger and teach them how to run, but this will never hurt anyone.
You're going to move on to the belt squat? Right. Or the hip ab? AJ?
This machine, it looks familiar to a lot of people, except this one has toe plates. This thing really works the hips and the abs tremendously.
And hip flexors.
And hip flexors, yes.
Soaz complex.
Everything right here. When he kicks someone, this is what starts.
Yeah, so Soaz complex is going to attach right here, and you can probably even see how much of his hip flexors he's getting here, right? His abs, his serratus, all that stuff, right? So it's the hip ab developer is what it's called,
yes.
Right? But you need to train your Soaz. A lot of people think that they don't need to train their Soaz, or they need to stay away from your Soaz. You need to train the Soaz. This is a setting where you can train the Soaz and you can complement it. So if you're doing the reverse hypers like Joe was doing, where you were actually using your hip flexors to come under, then you can complement that with coming over to here and using your hip flexors even more.
This will really double up the work when you do it on 1 foot. You feel a lot different? Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of stuff like that. And for weight resistance, we actually put chains on the pendulum. All right, is that pretty good?
And this is adjustable for any size?
It's adjustable. I mean, he's, what are you, 6'1"? 6'1". 6'1", I'm 5'5". I mean, it just adjusts up and down. If you want to make it harder too, the longer it is, of course, the harder it is.
Yeah, and you can do static holds at the top and static holds really anywhere throughout that entire range of motion.
Right, you want to do a lot of static work, folks.
Yeah, and it's a safe setting because his spine is here for anyone that's scared of that.
Okay. Now we're going to move into the belt squat. We're going to start out with some simple, just squatting. When you do this, this actually will realign the spine. There are chiropractors' machine, they call it the spinal aligner. This machine is also patented, and we're going to show you why in a moment. But go ahead, Brad, do a few box squats. Yep. You notice when he box squats too, for all you people wonder what a box squat is, when he sits back, watch the shin. The shin's passed straight up and down. He has to leg curl himself off that box. There's no bridge. We only do box squats. We got the greatest squatters in the world. We only go to a meet and squat. Okay. Now while you're in there, why don't you march? Watch standing, Brett. Now walk around a little bit. We do this for up to 10 minutes for some athletes. Very heavy weights.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about kind of what this is doing for the SI joint, which is the sacroiliac joint. So you have your iliums, which are your two hip bones right here, and then you got your sacrum. And what's happening is these pads are actually tractioning the ilium down, and as he's walking back and forth, he's starting to get motion in between that SI joint. So it's a safe setting. So like we work with a lot of fighters here and a lot of guys that have SI joint issues from the Jiu-jitsu and kicking predominantly with one leg, or linemen that line up predominantly with one leg. They'll start to develop SI issues. And so this is a way where we'll have them walk and do all sorts of stuff where we can actually train the tissue, but still therapeutically get motion into both SI joints.
I would like to demonstrate if Brad's able. Take your stance out, sit on this box. I guess this is what was it? 16?
16.
All right. So a lot of ball players have terrible mobility. Absolutely. They can't even squat to parallel. Is that right? All right. Here, we're going to just do 1 or 2 reps and then stand up. All right. 1, 2. What I do is, I normally take out 1 inch, but I will take out 2 at a time because Brad's used to this. All right. Now, 2 inches lower. Boom. 1 more. All right. 2 more inches. Two more inches. Ready, sit back. Oh. 1 more. We just went from 16 to 12 inches. It took me 2 freaking minutes. He's actually got just as good a form down there as ever. All right. Thanks, Brad. Now we're going to demonstrate. We're going to demonstrate doing some power cleans in the belt squat. This is phenomenal. This is nothing new. This is an old Olympic weightlifting exercise from Russia. Goes tremendous hip flexion. It's a very simple exercise. You can do push jerks in here, you can do cleans, you can do high pulls. You have any comments?
Yeah, and there's band tension on that too.
Yes,
for
band
people,
tension.
Right, that don't know. So he was going not only against 90 pounds, but the band tension as well.
Can you deadlift from this too?
Absolutely, we do a tremendous amount of deadlifts in
Can you show
here.
us deadlift?
We have 4 900-pound deadlifters. But what we do is, this is the band attachment. We would hook bands on here and load an enormous amount of weight on here. We probably had 2,000 pounds on here doing static support because we broke this pin.
Yeah, you can figure when you're squatting in this or deadlifting in this, right? If you didn't have the bar the entire time, there would be traction on both of these hip joints, right? So every time he's moving, when we look at the SI joint, he's going to get function in it,
Pick that up
in motion.
Go all the way down.
Even down lower, all the way. A little bit lower.
One more.
So this is fully adjustable.
Fully adjustable. What have I done? What have we done by doing this? You have 2 speeds. You have leg drive speed and upper body speed. So you have 2 accelerations of the body when you're doing a compound exercise like this. Yeah. And this is, whatever one lacks, this will build that up. Perfect. Thank you.
Can you do a sumo? Can you go wide in that, a wide grip?
Absolutely. Do one sumo for me. All right. Good. Perfect.
Hey, I just want to show from the back.
Hey,
Stay.
what? Go ahead. Come on.
No, I just wanted to show, so if people can see, this is the tailbone right here, right? Coming in right here, and these are the iliums. So these little dots right here is where the ilium and the SI joint is. So you can see that when he's walking, he's got traction here, but he's moving this joint. So therapeutically, if you have guys that have tight low back issues or SI joint issues where they're always pointing and they're saying that my issue's here, I would put them in the belt squat. What I do is after treatment, I put them in the belt squat and I'm having them walk. I have them use their torso so that they're rotating and starting to get all this motion in there while there's traction.
Tom, you talking to you.
For our fighters, we like to get them to do some pad work in here. There's constant tension on the hips, always pulling them down. They'll do a lot of combinations. And for those of you saying about a pit shark, you can't do this shit in a pit shark. You see, there's always constant traction pulling them down. So it's turning over his wrist a lot more. No compression on the spine.
Where's the power come from, Tom?
Hips.
Hips.
Hips. As you can see, everything has to turn over. His hips are turning over. His glutes are activated. His hamstrings are activated.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Now, if you drop the pads and do some pommeling. So you can pommel in this. Back and forth. Again, ideally you want to have your body weight on this as a minimum. And again, there's always constant tension. There's weight on his hips constantly.
And you're talking 5-minute round for the inmates.
5 minutes and then a minute and a half for rest with the 3 minutes, 3 seconds off. We've had jiu-jitsu guys on here for 7 minutes.
We've had rowers on there for 7 minutes doing kettlebell power cleans as well.
Okay. Football. Ready? So you put that in.
Come here, Nick. Just narrate it.
So what's happening here? What are they going to do?
So Brad's going to be demonstrating some block shedding and like hand fighting techniques. It's very common with defensive linemen. Like hitting the pad, keeping his hands inside while staying low and bent in good form. Keep his back arched. So he's trying to keep good form, keep his hips down low. The higher he gets, the more susceptible he is to being thrown or getting off balance. And also keeping his hands inside. The more you get your hands outside, you're much more susceptible to getting thrown or getting like off balance.
This belt squats are very versatile, and one of the best exercises. I think the MMA guys are doing this now, and they love it. I love it for back development from your neck to your spine. All you football players out there, what are you constantly having? Neck injuries, lower back injuries. You know why? You don't train them. You can't be afraid to train them. Concussions. You got all your concussions because you're weak neck. When I was a kid, and I'm an old man, if I walked up to a big guy and he had a neck like that, I go, "What do you do? Play football?" "Yeah, you're football." Little guys, big necks, they wrestle. You don't see this no more. What the hell? Concussions are going up, they're not going down. These ball players are not stronger than they used to be. They move just as fast. They're weaker, and that's why they get hurt. They're not durable. So here's an exercise that I think is just absolutely phenomenal for building from the neck to the tailbone. And this may look simple, but believe you me, this is not that easy. Round it. Straighten up. Good. While you're in here, just grab it and do some upright rows. Huh?
No, spread it straight up.
Don't have to spring on it. Okay.
There. Where's the fucking hook at?
Lou, what do you say to the people like pit sharks? You can't do anything like this in a pit shark.
No, you can't move around. We're going to show you in a minute. We can turn around in there in a moment, but this is you know what a pull through is? Turn around. Go between legs. Walk up right at the end. There. This is tremendous glute, hamstring, and lower back development right here. It's an old exercise, but people used to warm up for this. We use one of our primary exercises. Very good, very good. All right.
Can you show us how you would train a sprinter or any sprint drills you do on this?
Yeah, sure. First of all, we're going to use a little bit of band. You're going to do some quick sprinting? Yeah. All right. This Miles is going to demonstrate. Go ahead, Miles. Good. Oh, stand up. Stand up. I got it. Hey, give me a wrestler. Anybody? Hey, just turn them around. Here, try this in your pitch shark. Get him this grapple and just turn around. Turn around, right on around. Huh? Here, hold it. Let me get this up. Here, pick this up. There you go. Now do it. All directional strength, why this is around your waist. The stronger guys use more weight. Matt Brown lived in this machine while Matt trained here at Columbus High before moving to Colorado. His power went sick. And so you want to have a lot of power. Matt broke a lot of bones punching people, and this is how he done it. If you watch Stipe Milenovich train on TV, you show him in a belt squat using bands. We used to hook a lot of bands up and throw a lot of punches. Remember Stipe, he just led the parade in Cleveland as the Cavaliers won the championship. Go Cleveland! All right. Okay, see it? Good job. Okay. Great. What's good?
Louie, you took us through all your specialty pieces of equipment. I'm going to go into the bars pretty soon. But if you're a college strength coach or you're a strength coach in general, what would be your 3 pieces that you must have? I
would have a belt squat for conditioning. You know what? This thing looks. I'll put you in there with 3 plates on the side of the band. Have you go for 2 minutes, and you get off. You'll buy the machine. There's nothing in this world that will develop hips like this machine. Hips, legs, everything, stamina. We do a lot of kettlebells. You guys use weight vests, right? All kind of stuff in there. I mean, what is it like to go 5 minutes wrestling? Dead. We had Adam DeSablo, 3-time All-American wrestler, stuck his ass in there because TJ's messing him up, right? So he got in there, and right off the bat, 3-time All-American shows up, gets in here because he kicked his ass. And he got in there, and he goes, holy crap. And he had no idea. You can't watch something. You've got to actually do something. So it's machine, but this would be a primary machine, the inverse curl, and a reverse height. Those 3 machines, and then I would go to the Plow swing. A lot of people have posture problems, and I would go to hip quad. I mean, there's a reason I got it. And you got to understand, folks, these machines, for me to get a patent, the cheapest patent I think I've ever had is $15,000. I got way over $100,000 in here. And so, how did I do it? I saved my money and paid the patent attorneys and the engineers to make them for me. So, but it changed our life. That's why we're the strongest gym. A lot of weightlifting gym, you go in there, weightlifting gyms, what do they got? Rubber plates. That's all they got. If they had the machines, they could easily put 20K on their snatch and clean and jerk, I believe, in 6 months. Because you're weightlifters. Just give them one example of what you did.
So, when I started at Westside, my best clean and jerk ever was 270, and my power clean was 245. In a year, I power cleaned 305 and clean and jerk 327 at 150 pounds.
Just gives you an idea of what it will do.
How would you program this into your workouts? Would you do this as accessory work, or would you do it as max work?
Well, it's accessory work, but sometimes on some days, we do a lot. This could be our main exercise because we do a ton of volume. Like I had Joe in here a moment ago, it was 198. Joe's volume sometimes is 150,000 pounds, and it takes about an hour and a half to do that. If you want to succeed at any sport, if you want to be, if you was a boxer, you're an amateur, how many rounds you fight? 3. You turn pro, you go 4, 6, 8, 10, then 12 round championship fights. It's GPP, General. You just don't fight all the time. You got to do the pads and the bags and everything, the footwork, everything, and that's what makes you a fighter. And that's what makes us a strong powerlifting gym. And look at football. Football's a good example. A football game they play about 15 minutes of playing time, I think, on both sides of the ball, 8 defense, 8 offense. They practice hours and hours and hours, just for a Sunday, for us to watch them on Sunday play football. We're in college. You play, countless hours, right? But the game is small. So it takes a countless amount of work to become very good at your school, or whatever your sport is.
Now, we've done a lot of stuff for lower body. What are some of the best stuff you do for rehab for the upper body?
We'll show you. We're doing a lot of kettlebell benching, and I've got this is also a patented bar. My friend Jimmy Sykes patented this bar. So Joe will demonstrate this. I want to say one thing before Joe starts. I had a shoulder replacement surgery 2005 by the Cleveland Browns surgeon. He gave me no advice. He wanted me to see if I basically could tear it out. It's called a hemisocket. In 3 months, I benched 300 pounds I started out with a bar and then started adding weights like this. The more kettlebells you put on the bar, the more vibrations you have. I believe that the vibration is maximum contraction of soft tissue. I haven't had anyone to come in to prove it. But I believe that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, because it's unstable, your body's trying to stabilize it. By stabilizing, it's going to increase the activation. It's basically going to stimulate the mechano and proprioceptors, which is going to increase the sensitivity of the stretch reflex, meaning it should, we don't have any studies, right? But it should increase the activation of the stretch reflex. Now, the other thing that it's going to do, it's going to disperse the energy. So instead of a straight bar, they hang it over so that it's instead of like a sniper round, it's more like a shotgun blast, if that makes sense, on your joints.
You have a chaotic, oscillating pendulum effect is what you have here by science.
Yeah.
That's what my science, my physics professor tells me.
And he's making it look
Yeah,
easy.
drop that bar, Joe. Drop it. Slam it down in there. Get the thing bouncing. See how it bounces out? That's what we want. That's it. We do high reps, no less 20, 25 reps except for therapy. The very strongest men in this gym use the most weight, and you know, and it goes straight down. Good. It's good. Okay. We use a lot of different grips. I would always start close, and set after set, I went wider and wider and wider. And I never could do upright rows, but yet I could do upright rows with a vibrating bar. I have no idea why, but I could. So I want to demonstrate another bar.
Just have them take off that bar.
Here, let's sit in the back. Just pick the whole thing and set right up.
Yeah, just stick that freak bar in there.
Wait on there, Jim. This bar I came up with years ago. This bar has a patent on it. And what Joe, he's going to, in the bottom, it has external, internal rotation. In the bottom, he's going to stretch it apart, and at the top, he's going to slam it together. Or he can come off the chest, in and out, in and out, in and out. Halfway up the same, at the top, lock out. If you put it low in your stomach or across your throat, whatever you change, all these angles or dimensions, you'll find your weak areas. Go ahead, Joe. And what it is, it will correct a bilateral deficit. If Joe's way stronger with the right arm, he's going to push himself off the bench.
The other thing too is a lot of people only train the pecs, right? The pecs are horizontal adductors, meaning they also do this, right? So the component of adding this into the bar does basically everything that the pecs functional actions are, as far as both pressing and bringing horizontal adduction. He's doing everything. So if we could see his pecs, you can see how his pecs activate when he's bringing in and out. So if you're not using this bar, you're not getting that type of activation, right? And he can do that at any angle, right? So he can do it at mid range, he can do it at high range, he can do it at low range. So if you really want to fatigue yourself, you can fatigue yourself pressing, but then you're still not done because you haven't done horizontal adduction. So like someone like me would do flies and stuff like this, but you can actually combine those movements to get even more stimulation from one actual set.
One of the people we trained was a Greco wrestler. I basically went from nowhere to fourth in the United States, and he would get in the belt squat machine and use this bar as clinching, for clinching. He would use this bar as a clinch device, put weights on it so you can imagine. And he did his clinching work with this bar. So there's all kind of applications you can do there. You can incline press, decline press, you can curl, you can do anything you want. Upright row, anything you want. So it hits muscles at all dimensions like you're saying. Right. All these machines are so beneficial to keep you healthy. What we do is not very healthy. But you know, what I learned over the years, and Dave Tate and Chuck Vogelpohl, we paid the price for the guys that's in the gym today. We did everything to the extreme, too much band, too much training, too much everything, and now it all comes down to where we know the optimal amount of everything we do, but all people do now is come in and make progress. So, anything, Tom? You got any questions?
Yeah, I got a few questions to go through, you guys. On the reverse hyper, how would you program the reverse hyper into workouts?
Well, like I said before, I've got a chart. It's called the plan. It goes from 400 to 1,000 pound squat, and whatever the volume is, use 4 times your squat volume. And for us, and it's based off of 50, 55, and 60%, but with 25% bands. So a 400-pound squatter does 4,800 pounds. All right, it's 240 times 10 doubles, if you follow that. So he would do 4 times that work, basically 20,000. An 800-pound squatter does 9,600 pounds. So he's going to do around 40,000 pounds, basically twice as much. It's all mathematics, folks. What I do is, it may sound complicated to some people. It's all, if Joe here squats 900, we've got this guy here is squats 600, and he trains at Joe. All he does is use 50 to 60% of 600. Joe uses 50 to 60 of 9. If you watch my girls that squat around 500, I've got a real strong 123 can squat 500. If you watch her train at 60%, when she's used 6% of 500, and a guy over there that squats 1,000 and is using 600 pounds, 60% of 1,000, they are moving the bar at the same speed, right, Joe? The bar velocity is absolutely the same. That's a key component.
What are the best 3 exercises for a high school athlete in the belt squat machine, especially if they have to be placed in groups of 3?
I believe walking. I think walking and doing the deadlifts. I'm big in deadlifts.
On the squat.
Yeah, and the box squat.
Yeah, the box
There's
squat.
nothing like box squatting. You know, all you ball players, I hear coaches say, football's not, they don't have their feet wide. Well, yeah, we know what, you get your feet in an awkward position. Why you got all these groin injuries and hernias? Why you get sports hernias? Because you get in some awkward position you never been in. If you train wide, the body, you say John's got like 640 muscles. Or you also say, or does it have 1?
Yeah.
Why would you neglect any of them if you want to be an athlete? That would just be completely ridiculous. So you want to, but wide will make close strong. Close will never make wide strong. Any Olympic lifters, I get this argument, but I bring them in and make them squat wide. They can't hardly move the next day. Their abductors are so sore that they can't hardly move in their glutes.
3 exercises for rear deltoids.
I like upright row. Joe, you got any comments? What, John, what would you do for rear delt?
Yeah, for rear delts, I like the upright rows. I know you've had me doing the upright rows, and I think for posterior, just the whole entire shoulder girdle, because that's going to engage traps and all that other stuff that really stabilize it. So and then you even had me do where it's dumbbells, where I come up dumbbells, rotate, and then get a press up. And the thing that I like about the rotation up is you're getting external rotation when you rotate up, and then you're pressing. So if I had to pick one motion that I would do, would be an upright row with this rotation and a press, because that's going to capture everything.
A lot of people used to call those Cuban presses.
Yeah.
We do an awful lot of shrugging, a lot of wheelbarrow shrugging.
Yeah, and the rope rows.
And the rope rows.
Yeah,
exactly.
And actually, it's kind of cool. My favorite machine for realistically the upper auxiliary motion is the wheelbarrow that you showed me, where it's basically you're taking the scapula all the way up through its entire range of motion, forward and backwards. You remember this?
Oh, the seated wheelbarrow?
Yeah, the seated wheelbarrow. So I like to do this because a lot of people lack scapulothoracic control. And Lou showed me this one. And so basically what I do is I get in here and I'm trying to keep my elbows locked out and only use the scapulothoracic muscles. I'm going to come up as high as I can, come forward, bring it back, come up, come forward, and then bring it back like that. So it'll look like this, come all the way forward, keeping it down,
Drop the chin.
take it back,
This hits the mid traps in the bottom when he's down.
and then you can go in the opposite way too. So come all the way up, bring it up, back. And so, I mean, that's one of my favorite, like I always work this in, especially after I do like deadlifts and pulls, and it really adds into building up my upper back.
Tom, I know you've been doing a ton of these because you're not what you call the world's greatest bench presser, nor is your posture like the greatest. But your posture's totally changed and your shoulders are twice the size and you're breaking all your bench records.
Right.
And you're doing a lot of this and the heavy dumbbells, but a lot of shrugs.
Yeah.
You know, old time, years ago, they all did heavy shrugs.
Yeah.
There's even a shrug called a high shrug. We do it for safety scrub bar. Put a heavy bar on your back and they're called breathing shrugs. You breathe through your chest and contract your traps, and you will get huge doing that. The reps are enormous. People don't like it. People like you would. 50 to 70 reps. And you just work your way. You do enormous weights for high reps. Your chest circumference gets gigantic and your back grows like crazy.
And one of the things that I've figured out too in working with lifters is a lot of them don't have control of their scapulothoracic joint, because when you're bench pressing, it's always stable, right? And so a lot of times they lose that functionality. One of the things that I do, it's called controlled articular rotations, and it's just taking the articulation through its entire motion. And I use them, but I do them loaded. That way I get the therapeutic benefit of figuring out how to actually control my scapula and all these ranges when the tissues are loaded. So there's a therapeutic effect to it, and there's also a training stimulus.
Okay. We just got a question about how we would do the belt squat for jiu-jitsu. We do a lot of the belt squat where we'll do on it for time, we'll walk on it for 7 minutes, but one of the new exercises we do is what Miles is showing here, and you better be able to do it, is for the butterfly guard. So he will try. They will hold that, they'll bring their legs in and out, they'll bring it up and down, like that. And he'll bring it in and hold your knees in, and hold it, they'll hold that position, he'll pretend someone's on top of him, push him off. Yeah, he'll turn side to side, turn his hips, in and out, and they will do this for 5 minutes. And he's doing the weight cage, which is 45 pounds, which is pretty tough. Usually a lot of people have to wait a while for this, but this by far is one of the best. You can see he's already feeling it. You feel it in your front of your hips, your abdominals, your legs. That's one of the best exercises here we do for jiu-jitsu.
Thank you, Miles.
Why is Tom so ugly? Thanks, Devin. Any alternative exercise that people can do if they don't have a glute hamstring or a reverse hyper?
All right, I would say pull sled. For $150 or whatever a sled costs, I think it's one of the greatest things you can do. I tell fighters, like a fighter, go out there and act like you're a fighter if you're going to pull the stuff your upper body. We just pretty much lifters, we use mostly walk forward or sometimes walk backwards, but just duplicate your sport. But if you take a band, you can do any exercise that duplicates any machine in a gym. You can curl with it, upright row, external rotation, you could throw punches, you could blast off like a football player, anything you want to do. And it's so versatile, I would use a sled. And again, there's no weight on your spine. You can load up the spine to 500 pounds, but there's no weight on your spine. So that's why it works. I got feedback from a lot of football teams that started doing a lot of sled work. And for football teams, I believe 60 yards. And it's not a lazy walk, it's very powerful off the heel. And it's not how you run, but it builds up the posterior chain. But they eliminate a lot of ankle, knee, and hip injuries by pulling sleds.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you're a power lifter and you're doing a bunch of squats and deadlifts, you're not doing everything is unilateral. So it gives you a bilateral stimulus so that you're getting motion in that SI joint where so many guys get that chronic pain. So when you pull a sled, it's one leg after the other, so it's a different stimulus, therefore therapeutic.
And it's all exercise specificity. For my sprinters, like ball players, that like to go 60 yards, we do things by time. We'll cover, I'll have 200-meter runners or 400-meter runners go 60 seconds. And what we do is we find out as they power walk, they will gain distance. We've had some people gain 80 feet inside of one workout. What have I done? I've eliminated 80 feet of deceleration. Now, males and females are not the same. Females decelerate a lot more than males. Their acceleration phase is shorter, thus their maintenance time is shorter. So they need to concentrate on maintenance time to eliminate deceleration. So it's very important, especially for your female sprinters.
How do you get kids to squat or their squat strength up when they're particularly weak at the bottom of their squat? What auxiliary work?
Box squat and pull sled. Put them on a box with a fairly wide stance on a higher box. Remember, I showed you while they're high, pull out mats. Start them up there, don't go crazy. And I've trained kids at 10 years old who went on to actually coach wrestling, after they graduated. Had no injuries ever with the sleds. And they lived, we took them to power meets. And box squats are going to build. And also, my favorite exercise is sumo deadlift, done correctly. Eventually we'll do a podcast on technique in all three lifts. And but when you sumo deadlift, you never push your feet down, you drive your feet apart. So when you drive your feet apart and the pelvic comes forward, it builds lateral speed immediately and brings the hips forward, builds hip strength and mobility in the hips.
John, any specific exercise that help with adductor groin pulls?
Adductor groin pulls? It depends. Obviously squatting wide is going to be good for that because it's going to stimulate it. And anytime you're injured, you really want to understand the load bearing capacity of your tissue and progressively load it back up to that. So realistically, you just want to put the adductor in a position where you can load it, but not re-injure it. So that depends on what it is. A lot of times, like we just had a guy here who had an injury, a muscle strain, and we basically used, it's called progressive angular isometric loading on it, and we just took it through the actual ranges And what we would do is we would ramp it at 20% isometric contraction. So we would lock the adductor wherever the pain is. We would back off by 10 to 15 degrees and start to do isometric loading in those ranges, and then try and work it all the way up to 100%. So before I would get into any specific exercises, I would train the actual tissue and then start to work it back into your exercises.
You know, if you watch a lot of the training with the Jamaican Track Club, I notice a lot of women, they would hang on heavy bags. They'd leg scissor heavy bags and do sit-ups. But we do a lot of stuff here, bands pulling the knees apart and putting bands on each side and pulling them together. So we do both. I've also had my girl leg scissor some of these cushions that we have here, and they seem to work pretty good. Yeah. But the wide squats and wide deads, you don't have to worry about the small stuff like that.
Lou, who is the manufacturer of your equipment?
Dynamic in Wisconsin.
Okay. How do you feel about reverse grip bench? Should the bar path be straight up and down or curved?
It better be straight up and down. You're gonna dump it on your face. But when you do reverse grip bench, one thing it does is teach you have to stretch the bar. That activates the triceps. Years ago, it was very popular in the late 60s in Texas. A lot of guys use reverse grip bench. And it builds up the triceps and lateral strength. It builds up external strength because you have to stretch the bar. Just be careful doing it. Actually, for me, in my reverse band press, I could reverse the bench the same as I reverse band in a shirt. I did 580 with a normal grip, but I did 600 reverse grip. And then when I was 50, I benched 600, and no one had ever benched 550 at 50 years old.
Can you go over some more of the variations you're able to do on the inverse leg curl?
One thing you can do inverse leg curl. You can do single leg curls. That's very good. That's what Charles Bentley's got there. A lot of linemen know. He takes pro linemen, selects them, and trains them. He does a lot of single leg. And you need to do single leg stuff. I'm not big on it, but I am big on it because a lot of people have very weak, one leg's very weak, or one upper body portion is very weak. So you got to do single leg to find out which is which. You know, a fighter will get real dominant. If you're a right-hand fighter, you get dominant after a while, right? Or a left-hander will get dominant. So, you know, you need to be, I'd give my right arm to be ambidextrous, but I'm not.
Yeah. And the big thing with that one too is a lot of people don't realize that they only train to concentric failure, and that is the perfect machine where you can train to eccentric failure and start to teach the hamstrings how to break the torso, which if you're in athletics and you have an athlete, you're going to want them to be able to use the hamstrings to not only create and generate force, but also to prevent force. So think about having the athlete up there and them slowly lowering it down, and then having someone else raise it back up for them, and they're basically doing only the eccentric phase of the motion. And that should be a lot of stimulation in the hamstrings.
Okay. I'd like to thank you guys for doing this podcast live. Lou?
I'd like to thank all the listeners. I'd like to thank all the fellows here at Westside that helped us out with this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.